Hello, I made another plane again, and this one is a little bit of a departure from the norm for me. It's a fairly high wing loading one, made to fly a bit faster. This was more intended to be something that would be simpler to build, so it's fairly small, 1.1 meter wingspan, and I wanted to avoid using the stuff that people might find a bit harder to get, like carbon fiber spars and stuff like that, and also to cut down on the amount of sanding required for the fuselage and just make the construction a little bit simpler overall, in the hopes of maybe releasing some plans and some instructions so that people could follow along and maybe build one themselves. Originally I started with this kind of design, and this is a little bit easier because the wing is perfectly flat, so the spar is easy to put in there. But yeah, I opted not to do this one mainly because of the junction between the fuselage and the wing being a little bit tricky, and I know you could do it with the rubber bands technique and stuff, but I just don't really like that method of attaching the wings. So it would have been a bit of a nuisance to have a spar going through here, and you still want to have some sort of a hatch, and I just couldn't come up with a good way that would be easy to construct. I did actually do that on Homeslice 7. I ended up doing something like that, but it was not particularly easy to construct, so I abandoned this as the candidate for my build along release, and I went with this one. But unfortunately I eventually abandoned this as well because I ended up needing a little piece of aluminium to connect the spars in the middle here. So it's sort of a trade-off here, because on one hand putting the wing below the fuselage like that gets the spar out of the way of the hatch on top. And I really like to have a nice big hatch along the top where you can get your hands in easily, because it's really frustrating if you're poking around in little pokey spaces like that. And this solves that problem, but yeah, there was an issue with trying to get the spar through. And do you make a cavity here in the bottom of the fuselage and keep the wing as one single piece ahead of time and glue them together like that? Or do you keep the wings as separate pieces and then glue them onto the sides of the fuselage? And I went for that, which makes it a lot easier to get things lined up. But then you need some way to strongly connect the spars together, because the spars going to have to be broken in the middle. I'll show you in the photos all this stuff as I was going along, what I had to do. But anyway, I just decided that this one was also a little bit too tricky to put together. I did make it easy in some respects. So this section here along the bottom of the fuselage is perfectly flat. So when you press the bottom of the fuselage against the bench, everything will line up perfectly flat like that. And the wing cutouts, or the wing profiles, they also flattened off a little bit along the bottom here, so that when you press the bottom of the wing against the bench, that would also line up perfectly as well. And originally it was going to be no dihedral, but when I decided to abandon this as the build along series plane, I thought, well, I'll put a bit of dihedral in because it will look a little bit more like the World War II fighter planes that we see, and they have dihedral like that usually. So it wasn't really trying to make it look like a warbird sort of a thing, but as things developed it became more and more looking like one, and I certainly wasn't going to resist that direction, so that's what we've kind of ended up with. So I did not record any video while I was building this because that's kind of a pain in the ass, but I did take some photos every now and then, so we'll just have a slideshow for this one. I started off by cutting my large foam box blocks down to 1-inch thicknesses like this to simulate what it would be like for people who can buy 1-inch boards at their local hardware store. This is after hot wiring all the airfoils, and this is after sanding the fuselage. And yeah, this question of the spar was where everything sort of went off the rails, because I realized I had to cut this in the middle and then rejoin it to make it basically the easiest way to assemble everything. If you don't do this, you'd either have to glue everything all together all at once, so the spar and the fuselage and the wing, in one gluing operation, and that's actually not that hard if you have a no dihedral wing. The other question is that if you glue it all together first, then you're going to have to fiberglass it afterwards, which is kind of awkward. You really want to fiberglass the wings separately first before gluing them together, but if you're going to fiberglass them, you want the spar to be glued in there already, right? So I ended up just doing it this way. It seemed to be the easiest way to do it, and this also opens up the possibility of maybe having the wings detachable in the future. I glued them on permanently, but yeah, you could probably make it so that the wings would detach and you could break it down for smaller storage or transport or whatever. To get the push rods to go out to the tail, I just gouged a groove along here and put a drinking straw in there to help the push rod slide a bit better. And also because when we fiberglass this, we're going to want to squash a bunch of that lightweight filler putty in here, and then we want to pull it out, and the straw makes it easier to pull the putty out again afterwards. So it looks like that on the outside. This is what I was saying earlier about making things easier to align, and in this case we have the bottom of the fuselage here is flat, and we know this is like the x-axis of the design in the OpenVSP program. So if you just put another piece of wood out here like this, then you have the x-axis there, and you can line up the horizontal stabilizer like that. And I used my vertical hot wire bandsaw thingy to cut this section out. This is another thing that I thought might not be so easy for others to build if they don't have one of those bandsaws. Yeah, I guess you could do it with a knife maybe. Be a bit tricky to get it just right though, wouldn't it? Anyway, that's for the horizontal stabilizer. On the next slice across, or the next slice out, so that's we're not in the middle of the plane anymore, we're like 1 inch out from the side. I'm not using any rudder yet, but I thought it might be a good idea to put this capability in there, so it's just another straw that goes in there for rudder, and that's slightly slanted here because the push rod's going to go to about here. So I don't know if I'll use that yet, but it also allows a little bit of air to come out the back of the plane. This section here is just the plywood for holding the battery on, and I left a little bit of foam here. I think the reason was because I wanted this hole to still be useful as a positioning like peg hole to keep everything in the right place, but I ended up having to sand a bunch of wood off there to keep the plywood flat across the top, which was a bit of a nuisance. This section here is where the servos are going to go, and when I positioned them in there, they didn't quite fit without a little bit of extra cavity, so that's what I've done there. This is with all the fuselage pieces glued together, and there's a little wooden plate here for the servos to go at the back, and I'll show you later on what we'll do with that. Here is the fuselage all puttied and sanded ready for fiberglassing, and I've stuck that piece in for the horizontal stabilizer there. I just tacked that in lightly with a bit of Yoo-Hoo pour, and then filled in the cracks around the side with the putty so that the fiberglass resin wouldn't go in there. That is the same thing, I think. This is again the same thing. We've got the motor thingy on the front. This is fiberglassing the fuselage, except for the little bit on the bottom. You can see I've put it on some foam blocks there, and that's because, oh yeah, it's a tail cavity. I wanted to fiberglass across the bottom of the fuselage all in one go. Yeah, so the wing halves are ready to be permanently attached there, and then this is the bottom, and you can see I've sanded it so that it is actually now a perfectly flat section here. And then I put a large piece of glass all the way across so that both wings are joined by one piece of glass there. And this is, I think I was just doing the filleting bits here. After gluing everything on, you put a little bit of the microspheres in here, and then another small piece of glass around here just to make that nice and smooth. And I think it was about 550 grams there. That's with 2 servos in. So at this point I thought, oh, it's going to be quite light, but you know, it never turns out like that, does it? So then I think I just took some photos to show you, basically. So that's these. Turned out quite nice. Oh, I forgot to mention, from this section here, so the wings were done in two sections of foam. From this point here outwards, I added a little bit of washout there, so the angle of incidence on the wingtips is, I think it's like maybe 2 degrees or 3 degrees down from this point. And the idea with that is to try and make it stall a little bit less violently. And as we'll see, it turned out reasonably well. And then just a bunch more photos to show you. Pause if you want to have a look at those. And so this is the servo plate, and the reason I did it like this is so that I could take it out easily afterwards. So it screws into the bottom piece with just a wood screw there. And the main reason is that I knew it was going to be pokey and finicky to get my fingers in this area, and that kind of thing just really pisses me off for some reason. So I wanted to make it so that I could just take this plate out and work on it outside the plane later if I want to, for example, put a rudder servo. It's going to have to go here, or just to adjust this for some reason, or maybe if the servo breaks. I went for the cheapy plastic servos all round on this one. I haven't had a problem with any of those actually. They've been quite good performers. So I thought, what the hell? I do have Metal Gear servos, but I thought I'll just go with these ones for this time. They have a very nice smooth sound to them too, which I quite like. Anyway, so that's the elevator push rod. This is on the bottom of the plane, so when you land, if you're landing on concrete or short grass, that might be a bit of a problem. But where I am here, I can pretty much land on quite long grass all the time, so hopefully that's not going to be an issue. This is the motor with a hole for the wires to go in, like that on the front. This is the motor that I'm using, 2216 1300 kV, and this is marketed or sold on Banggood as being for one of the ZOHD Zod Dart or something like that. And it doesn't say on the Banggood listing, but I was nicely surprised to see that it's actually a Sunny Sky motor, so that's quite good. And this, I think, is the last photo in my list, and it's all ready to fly, and nowhere near 550 grams anymore. Once I put all the rest of the stuff on there, it jumped up to 960, I think it is, at this point. So the rudder, I'm not using this. I did break it open, like I opened it and bent it a little bit, and there's a piece of peel ply. I'm using peel ply for all the hinges. And there's a peel ply hinge on here, but I just cracked it open and then I closed it up and put packing tape on there again. So if I do want to use the rudder in future, all I need to do is take that packing tape off and it should be ready to go. Oh, it's going to need one of these things, of course, isn't it? So let's have a look at how this thing flies. Okay, it's time for the Maiden. I'm just going to go with the 3S battery for now. I think it'll be okay, but it might be a little bit borderline for power. And with the CG being here and the best handhold being here, it's kind of awkward to throw because it wants to like fall down like that. So I might actually throw it with a flat hand like that. Here goes. Oh, it's quite pitchy. I might have the CG back a little more than is good for it, but it's flying at about half throttle. Let me just try and bring it back. Oh yeah, I'm going to need a lot more expo here. Pitching up and down. It's really quiet. So it's quite small for you on the camera, isn't it? And I don't want to bring it close to me too much just yet. Especially with this expo situation. Yeah, CG's definitely going to have to go forward a bit. Not to keep it flying stably, but just to keep it controllable. Because this is hard work. Unless I trim with my other hand, because the throttle, I'm not touching the throttle and I have no rudder, so yeah, man, it's all I can do to just keep it flying straight and level. Fortunately, I have tons of arrestor grass here. It's like the longest I've ever seen the grass around on this farm. Not enough, not enough at all. Okay, so I've bottomed out my pitch trim. Oh, geez, it's fast. It's quite fairly quiet too, which is nice. Full throttle. Nice and aerobatic. It's good. Let's do a roll. Oh yeah. Loop. Oh, whoops, kind of messed that up, but almost a loop. Gliding here. Looks like the prop is not braked. See if we can do a glide swoop down in front here, as we always do. Woohoo! Yeah, it's a real handful. So I'm going to need lots more expo. Another loop. Yeah. Yeah, lots more expo is what we need, and pitch trim needs to be mechanically changed. Let's do a full throttle pass. That's full throttle, 3S. Didn't seem super fast. Oops, no rudder. No rudder! How the hell did this landing break the prop? Look at this. Look at that. And still the prop breaks? I don't believe that. Look. What the f—
Oh my goodness.
Okay, so I added a bit of nose weight in the form of this, which has turned out to be just perfect actually, so that's kind of nice. Mechanically trimmed the elevator, and I added some expo for all surfaces, and I put a battery alarm in here so I can hear when the battery's going to die. So I think it might be a little bit nose heavy now actually, but it'll be interesting to check sort of the range and make it a little bit one way and then a little bit the other way, and hopefully find the best position in between after that. What the? Oh, I think that's just my pitch trimmers. Now I need to pull back. So I've trimmed it a little bit too far the other way. But I was going to say it's easier to fly. I think it is. If I let go now, it's going to do a huge dive. So it's actually a little bit. Have to be a little bit more careful now until I've trimmed it. So okay, so once again I've bottomed out the trim. If I could add a bit more expo in flight, that would be nice, because I think then the trim would be just about enough, because if I let go of the sticks, oh, it's way better now though. If I let go of the stick here, yeah, it wants to dive, but not precipitously so. Okay, bring the throttle back to about half, as I was before. Whoops. Yeah, got to keep an eye on it. So it seems to be flying at half throttle, 3S. Maybe a little bit more would be comfortable. That's good, I guess. Ooh. Oh yeah, that pitch is still really tricky. Man. Better than it was though. It's starting to get a bit dark now, so I think I'll just see if I can do some flybys here for the viewers without crashing. And that will have to be it, I think. Hopefully I can land without breaking the prop this time, because I think I only have one more of these 8x6 props. And if I break this one, then I'll have none, so that'll be the end of it for today, in either case. See how it's kind of bouncing up and down? That's me I'm actually trying to hold it still. This is still half throttle though, so it's quite nice. Actually, I'm going to have to bump it up a little bit. It doesn't quite feel comfortable at half throttle. Maybe I'll pump the throttle up a bit more, throw it around some, eh? Roll. Should we try inverted? Oh, I just realised I didn't sellotape the canopy on. The hatch is not stuck down. Damn it. Maybe we shouldn't try any more rolls. Certainly not any inverted. Lucky I remember that. Glide. It's actually not a bad glide. Whoops, starting to stall there. Oh yeah, I should do a stall test, shouldn't I? Because I need to be able to figure out a softer way to land it than what I just did. I was being conservative, trying not to let it stall. But maybe if I knew I could get it slower, it'd be less of an issue. So let's come over here. Come over this way, please. Oh, I've lost orientation, have I? Yes. There we go. There we go. Okay, motor off. Oops. Back on the stick. Oh, it does tip still. Damn it. Not bad though. I didn't have to put the motor on there to get out of it, and I was able to get out of it very quickly. So I'm just going as slow as I can, waiting for it to stall again. It's getting a little bit low though to be doing this, but oh, that's alright, eh? Okay, motor back on. Alright, so looks like it can slow down reasonably well for a landing. So I was thinking I might have to put flaps on this if it was just going to be such a fast, hot little thing that it was going to be difficult to land, but might not be too bad. Still very bouncy and pitch though. I've got 75% expo, which I think is I think you can only go up to 100 on this radio, so that's quite a lot already. Still full throttle pass, right about. Okay, that's full throttle. Doesn't seem that impressive, does it? It's still a bit of a handful to control. Might have to add the rudder because some of that like bouncy movement is in yaw, you know. Not much, but some of it is. Starting to feel a bit weak now. So this is about 65% throttle, still climbing, but not quite as happy as before with the power. So I'll cut the motor here and do another one of those slow flight tests. Let it stall here again, maybe. I have to be careful here. I only have the silhouette in my vision. I can't really. Oh, did you see that? So it started to stall, and I was almost immediately able to stop it from stalling. So motor back on there. That's pretty good actually. I'm happy with that. So it's just the pitch bounciness and twitchiness that's kind of a bummer still. And oh, it's getting really hard to see. Yeah, I think it's time to land. Oh yeah, I can't see it properly now, so let's go back over that way. See if I just glide it in from there and see what happens. Right, a little bit more power. Please don't break the prop. Okay, we got away with it that time. That's good, isn't it? Looks like this is still recording, so fortunately the SD card was not full, because I've been making a habit of trying to record with the SD card not having enough space lately. And also fortunately this hatch did not fall off, even though it was just sitting there like that. Although I did have the presence of mind to make sure that it was under the camera there, so if not for that it might have actually fallen off in this flight. But I'll have to remember to tape it next time. This is what everything looks like inside, by the way, at the moment. Just got the receiver at the back, kind of. Antenna coming out here, reminiscent of something, don't you think? Yeah, so I'd like to fly a bit more, but the light is just getting a little bit dim here. Can't really see it properly, and it's kind of small. It doesn't take very long before it's too far away to see which way it's facing. Anyway, enough waffle. That is the end of this video, I think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time when we maybe try 4S. Probably not with that prop though. 8x6 might be a little bit too much. I tried it on the bench. It works and everything, and it was only pulling 22 amps. The ESC's 30, so that should be right. But the motor was getting quite hot, I noticed. So yeah, that's one reason I'm using a separate beacon here, just in case the ESC burns out and we don't have any more 5-volt power to the servos or the receiver. I thought it might be safe to keep that separate. Anyway, yeah, see you next time.